Welcome to another English session. Today we'll be focusing on The Summer of the Beautiful White Horse by William Saroyan. He was one of the most famous authors of his generation from the 1930s and the 40s, but his fame was pretty short-lived as his personality was kind of abrasive. If you read more about his biography, which I suggest all of you to do, read a little bit more about the authors. I will put information, as I always do, in the beginning of the video about the author, but that's not enough. You should actually delve a little bit more into his history, what his writing style was. I'll try to explain as best as I can. But like I said, you need to be curious, you need to be able to look up things on your own, you need to be able to do some research on your own. So look up William Saroyan. The story is not very complicated. It's a very simple story, it's very simply written. There's not a lot of literary gymnastics going on, there's not a lot of complicated stuff going on. At the same time, the simplicity is what makes the story interesting. It is part of the minimalist school of writing. The minimalist school of writing includes people like Hemingway and other writers. I mean, the best example I can give you of a minimalistic style of writing would be Ernest Hemingway. If you don't know who Ernest Hemingway is, you should be looking him up right now. As I've told you before, you need to be making notes whenever you're watching these videos. You need to be sitting with your textbooks and your notebooks. Not your fair notebooks, but your note-making notebooks, wherever you're writing down your notes for your study yourself. You should be making notes. Write down Ernest Hemingway, look up who Ernest Hemingway was, what his most famous works were. And if you read a little bit of Hemingway's short stories, you'll understand what I mean by minimalism. The writing style was based more on being direct with the audience, communicating their ideas clearly without very fancy words. In a way, they were the complete exact opposites of the writers who came before them. As always, like, writing is a generational thing. Usually once you get influenced by a certain generation, you either try to write like them or try to write the exact opposite of them. Many people try to copy writers, but that's where you lose your voice. So William Saroyan had a very unique voice at that time, and he got famous because of it. He got famous because of his short stories at first, and then he moved on to writing plays and writing movies and novels, etc, etc. So I'll put forth a summary of the chapter right now in the video, and then later, as usual, I'll talk a little bit more in detail about what the chapter actually involves, what the text actually involves, and other details. So without further ado, let's start the video. So I hope everybody has been through the summary section properly, and make sure whenever you're reading the summary to read the text first and then read the summary, otherwise you won't be able to understand it. And as I've told you countless times, make notes and make questions and make observations and inferences about the text while you're reading it. Write them down and then talk to me when we are having our online sessions. That way we can discuss and I can clear your doubts much more easily. Just remember, asking questions doesn't mean that you didn't understand the text. Asking questions isn't wrong. Asking questions is how you learn. If you don't ask questions, then I won't be able to understand you either. I won't be able to understand that if you're able to get what I'm trying to tell you, if you're able to understand the story or the poem or whatever it is that we're studying at that time. So make sure that you're making notes, make sure that your notes are maintained properly in a way that you can understand your notes. I won't be checking them, but make sure that you're making them in a way that it helps you study later on and not just like doing it for the sake of doing it. Make sure that your notes are useful, make sure that they help you study, and make sure you're underlining the important words, the difficult words that you don't understand, and you're looking up their meanings and you're looking up their definitions. You should be improving your vocabulary slowly. I understand that a lot of you don't come from an English background, you don't speak English in your houses, you are not exposed to the language as well. This is the reason why I'm talking to you in English so much, is because I want my students to be exposed to the language properly, how it is spoken in a real world way. I mean, I don't talk to you like a movie character. I'm not talking to you like somebody from a film. This is not a script that I'm reading. I'm talking to you directly. Alright, so pay attention to when I'm talking and make sure that you're making notes, make sure your notes are clean, crisp, and understandable to you. It doesn't matter if I can't understand your notes, if anybody else can't understand them, as long as you understand them, it's fine. So let's just get into the chapter now. Now, the important thing to notice is like they are from an Armenian tribe, these two main characters. Who are the main characters? Aram and Murad. These are two cousins who live in California. Now, a little bit about the Armenian tribe and their history with horses. So I've put forth the link in the description. You should be checking it out. Make sure that you go over there and read that article completely. That will be much more use to you than me just talking about it, because I'm not a historian. I'm just a writer. I'm just an English teacher, so it's not my strong suit. But from what I know, from what I've studied, Armenians were famous as horse breeders, as horse riders and horse tamers throughout history. In fact, many of the famous empires around them, like the Assyrians, the Persians, and everybody else, relied on the Armenians to supply horses for their army, to supply horses for their cavalry, and they were famous, famous for their horse riding skills and their horse rearing skills, right? This is why the reason these two boys are so obsessed with horses. That's why their dream is to one day own a horse or one day ride a horse. Which is why we see like his cousin, when he tells him that I have a way with animals, I have a way with horses. This is one of the way the author alludes to the fact that like, they come from a lineage of people that are known for their interactions with horses, that are known for their skills breeding horses. Now, a horse is a very different thing, like, because for us, like, we have no idea what horses are, right? Like none of us have ridden a horse like daily. None of us use a horse to get around. Like, we barely see any horses these days anymore. Like, the donkeys that carry sand and everything from the mine don't count, because those are called mules. Those are not horses. Horses are different creatures entirely. So this is very hard for us to understand, but like, if you use your imagination, as I've told you countless times, it'll be easier for you to put yourself in the place of our characters and try to imagine like what it would be like. So the story is set in the 1940s in the San Joaquin Valley. It's written Joaquin, but it's pronounced Joaquin. That's how you should pronounce it. Even the actor who played Joker, his name is Joaquin Phoenix. That's how you pronounce it. So San Joaquin Valley is a very famous valley in California. Orchards. It's famous for its vineyards. Vineyards is a place where wine is grown. Orchards are where fruits are grown. You should look up these meanings. I don't know why I'm explaining this to you. I'm doing half your work for you, but you look this up, alright? Look up the meanings of orchards and vineyards. Look up San Joaquin Valley. There's other places in California as well that are famous for this stuff, like San Bernardino, San Jose, and etc. 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 Whenever there is a location given in a story, or whenever a story is set in some place that is real in real world, always make sure to look up the map of the region or some sort of drawing or whatever, like you can, anything that helps you visualize whatever you're reading about is going to be much more beneficial to you than just reading about it. So always try to make sure that you have a visualization in your head whenever you're reading a story. And in the age of the internet, it's very easy. You can just Google anything that you want. So it's going to be very easy for you guys to look this stuff up. So the story starts off with the line, "One day back there in the good old days when I was 9 and the world was full of every imaginable kind of magnificence, and life was still a delightful and mysterious dream. My cousin Murad, who was considered crazy by everybody who knew him except me, came to my house at 4 in the morning and woke me up tapping on the window of my room." So let's take a look at the first line, right? One day back there in the good old days. So what are the good old days when you were 9? When you're 9, the world is full of mystery. Like when you're 9 years old, magic still exists in this world. Now, this is something we will all struggle with. Like, not just you, it's been with me, it's been with everybody. Like, as you grow older, as you grow older, life loses some magic, you know? Like when you're younger, you're curious, you believe in ghosts, you believe in superpowers, you believe that like tomorrow morning you wake up, there might be magically something outside your door. You make wishes on falling stars, you blow petals of a dandelion, you look for 4-leaf clovers. There's magic in this world when you're 9 years old. And that's the sad part about growing old. As you grow old, life loses certain magic, life loses a certain charm. As you grow old, the world like forces itself on you. You realize, oh, you become a cynic basically. Look up what cynic means. So life loses magic when you grow older. Like, you know, you lose certain things, you lose certain happiness, your dreams change. For example, like when I was 9 years old, what I wanted to be, if you asked me what I wanted to be, I wanted to be Batman when I was 9 years old. That was my dream. That like if I want to grow up, I'm going to be Batman. I had no idea how I was going to be Batman. He's died, and that's the reason why he became Batman. I didn't have any idea about that. I didn't know that he was a billionaire. At 9 years old, I honestly believe that if I thought about it hard enough, one day I would wake up and be Batman. So that's what the magic of being a 9-year-old is. Like the world is a magical place to you. Like fairies exist, wishes exist, dreams exist. And as you grow older, I mean, that's the thing about growing older. The people who are the most fun adults that I hang out with, like the people I have the most fun with, are the ones who still maintain that magic somewhere in their hearts, are the ones that still have that child somewhere in their heart, that haven't lost it. So just keep that in mind. And if I could give you one advice that you may or may not like care about, but like just make sure that that innocence, that childlike innocence that we all have inside of us, keep that with you. Like the world will try to take it away from you. The world is a very cruel and heartless place. Like bad things will happen to you. Like life is a series of ups and downs. Life can't just be up, life can't just be down. If there's a down, there's an up as well. So make sure whenever you're going through those ups and downs of your life, keep that little child in your heart, keep that wonder in your heart. Watch as many sunrises and sunsets as you can, wish upon as many stars as you can, because that's the point of life. Like if we lose that little magic that we have in life, the world just becomes such a cold and dark place that I don't want to live in a world which doesn't have any magic in it. Even though I know that there is no such thing as magic, there is no such thing as ghosts, there is no such thing as any of that, blah blah blah. I'm a huge believer in science. I'm a huge believer in logical thinking. But at the same time, like you can't help but wonder, like, what if there was some magic in this world? What if, like, tomorrow I wake up and stumble upon an alternate dimension or a reality or whatever it is? So this is just like the first part of the story. This is just the first part of the chapter, but I really wanted to get this into you because the story is very simple. Like there isn't any like action that goes on, there isn't any thriller parts of the story, there isn't any suspense in the story. It's a very simple story. The key to the story is why is it in your chapter, why it was so well received when it was written, is it is a snapshot of characters. What do I mean by that? What do I mean by a snapshot of characters? Every character that you read in the story has their own quirks, has their own personality, and it shines through the pages, it shines through the literature. I mean, the story doesn't go anywhere. There's not a lot of things that happen. It's not like the story begins in one place and there's like a breakneck pace and there's a chase on a white horse and they get shot and then they have to dodge police, and none of that. It's just a simple story about two boys from a poor tribe who suddenly come upon a horse and then they try to ride that horse and then they have to return that horse to the farmer that lost the horse. I mean, yes, there are themes of right and wrong and honor and everything else that are explored in this story, but it's not a very action-packed story. There's not a lot that happens in the story. But the reason why we read it, the reason why it's in your textbook, the reason why it's an important part of your literary culture or of your literary history is because of the characters, is because of the time it was set in. Like, so in the 1940s, when this story is set in California, there was a huge influx of Armenian immigrants into America. These were people who were coming from war-torn countries, people who were coming from places where there was civil war, there was genocide, and they were escaping that. And all of them lost a lot of things. They lost their homes, they lost their ancestral homes, they lost their family members, they lost their money, they lost everything. And they came to America as immigrants and they tried to build new lives, doing new things. Now, for example, like they explain, like they're from the Garoglanian tribe of the Armenians. As you look in the second page, like my family belonged to the Garoglanians, an Armenian tribe. Now, tribe basically means context. Tribe basically means a group of people who belong to the same family, right? So the Garoglanians is a huge clan. Like basically, you marry into the clan, you become part of the clan, then your kids you have your kids, and etc. etc. So that's how clans work, that's how tribes work. One of the biggest example of tribes in our country would be the Gujars. The Gujars are a nomadic people that take their livestock and move from the hills to the plains and then back to the hills. They don't really live in one place. But though that's what I would give you as an example of a tribe. I knew my cousin Murad enjoyed being alive more than anybody else who had ever fallen into the world by mistake, but this was more than I could believe. In the first place, my earliest memories had been memories of horses, and my first longings had been longing to ride. This was the wonderful part. In the second place, we were poor. This was the part that wouldn't permit me to believe what I saw. We were poor, we had no money, our whole tribe was poverty stricken. Like I said, they have lost everything, they've come to this new country and they don't have anything. At the same time, like their history with horses, their ancestry and everything is what prompts them to have this such a strong desire to ride horses, such a strong memory to be around horses, to like deal with horses, because that's what their ancestors have been doing for centuries and generations, in fact. Make a note of this. The story is considered a character study. It's based around characters, it's built upon characters, and it's the characters and the interactions between them that carry the story. Like the interactions, how the characters interact with each other, how they behave around certain people, how they react to a certain situations. One of the examples of a character study, according to me, would be the movie Pulp Fiction. Now, Pulp Fiction is actually a very good movie. But like what carries that movie is the vast number of characters that it has, is like the large amount of characters that it has, and all of them are fleshed out, all of them are brilliantly crafted in their own world, and they inhabit their world feels real, they feel like real characters. That's one of the most important things when you're writing, is like the characters you create should feel like real people. They shouldn't feel like, caricatures that you're just putting on paper to carry your story forward. That's what a good character is supposed to be. A good character is supposed to be real. It's supposed to jump out of the pages of the author. Now, if you read this story right now, like Murad, his cousin, is like an interesting character. Like you would want to hang out with somebody like that guy, because like he says, oh, he has a way with horses, he has a way with animals, and he's just 13 years old, this boy, but he's worldly wise, he's wise in the ways of the world, and he's making his cousin happy. And he cares about his family as well. He cares about the honor of his family. Otherwise, like, he could have sold that horse that he found, and he could have made a lot of money. Like, these were poor people. You couldn't judge them for doing that. I mean, and in his position, like, if you were in his position, if you were from a very poor family, if your family was poverty stricken, and you suddenly found a horse that you had no idea was stolen, you just found a horse somewhere and you could sell it and make a lot of money. Why wouldn't you sell it? Why wouldn't you put money in the bank of your family? Why wouldn't you put food on the table of your family? The only reason here, the only explanation is because of his strong sense of honor, his strong sense of familial identity. Familial identity means the identity of his family. So they both strongly relate to, like, yeah, we are Garo-Glanians from Armenia. We are known for our honesty. As you read further into the story, you are introduced to many different characters. You're introduced to many different colorful characters, like his uncle Khosrow, like a man who he describes as he would just yell at everybody. He was irritable. He had a short temper. In fact, like, he had a famously short temper that, like, even if when his house was on fire and his son came to him and said, "Dad, our house is on fire," he yelled at him, "Quiet, it is nothing. Like, it means nothing. Just quiet. Let me have my haircut. Let me have my shave in peace." So, like I said, this is a character study. Like, every time you are introduced to a character, there's something about them that sticks out in your mind. There's something about them that makes you remember them. And that's why the story is interesting. And then you go through scenes of where these boys are learning how to ride horses, and the author uses things to describe the horse. And like, it's basically like a fairy tale quality in bits and pieces. Like I said, like, it's a 9-year-old remembering his whole story. So there's a bit of magic sprinkled everywhere throughout the story. All the characters that we encounter, like the farmer John Byro, like Uncle Khosrow, his mother, like especially Murad, his cousin, is like, everybody is colorful, everybody has their own personalities, and their personalities shine through when they talk to each other. As you can see, like, if you read the book right now, like whatever textbooks you have, there's no quotation marks in the dialogues. That means, like, this is the author remembering stories, so he might be wrong, like, he's not quoting them exactly, he's remembering the conversations that he has had with his cousins, the conversation that he had with his uncle, the way his mother used to describe his uncle, everything else, like, so his family interactions, how the family behaved, everything is through the lenses of a 9-year-old talking to us in the future and remembering a past that he might have forgotten. There might be blurry memories, there might be things that he doesn't remember quite as they happened, but he does remember enough of them to tell us the story. And you look at it, there's like little hints of magic. Like Murad says, everybody thinks Murad is crazy, but Murad says, I have a way with animals, and we see him fix up a bird, we see him deal with the horse, we see him talk to the dogs. So there might be some magic in this world still left, and that's what I love about this story, is because it doesn't explicitly tell you, oh, Murad had like magical powers that let him talk to animals. No, it's just a dude who was good with animals, who had some sort of sixth sense that made him relate to animals, and we know plenty of people about that. Like, for example, me personally, like, all dogs I encounter hate me for some reason. And all dogs that meet my brother love him for some reason. But at the same time, like all kids that I encounter, little kids like me, but they don't like my brother. So it's just that, like, there's things about each of us that make us different in our own unique way, and it's our quirks that separate us. It's our things, it's the little things, it's the little tiny details about each of us that make us magical, that makes this whole world magical, because there's 7 billion of us. And if you talk to another human being, chances are yes, you might share something similar with them, but chances are they might be a completely different person than you. They might have something that's so different, so unique to you, that it almost seems magical to you, like to encounter a person that is so different than you. This is what the story is about, because it allows us to read a story just for the characters, not because like we're trying to get something out of it, not because we're trying to get from point A to point B, even though the story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. But that's not the focus. The focus is the characters we meet along the way. The focus is the interaction between the characters, the dialogue that happens between the characters. So when you're reading the story on your own, pay attention to the dialogue, pay attention to how the author is describing the surroundings around him, how he's describing what's happening to him. Pay attention to the words he's using, underline the difficult words, make notes of it so we can talk to each other in class about it and we can discuss about it. But that's basically it. So I won't be able to explain much more to you because it's a very simple book, it's a very simple story, but we will go through it in class, and I'll be putting forth like some more resources and some more text details at the end of this video to help you study on your own. So I hope you enjoyed this explanation, and I'll see you guys in class soon.